I do feel compelled to ask you about a report that was brought to my attention just a very short time ago. I need to ask you about this. On March 19th, 2009, there was a report done by the Republican committee here that said, Friends of Angelo is the name of this report, Friends of Angelo, Countrywide's systemic and successful effort to buy influence and block reform. On page 38, paragraph 3, it says, fees were also waived for Postmaster General John Potter. Potter benefited from an encounter with Mazzillo in 2003. Potter was in the process of arranging a, quote, complicated, unquote, bridge loan when he, quote, coincidentally, end quote, ran into Mazzillo. Mazzillo instructed Countrywide's Kay Gerfen to, quote, let Potter know that we/CW, which I take it to be Countrywide, will take care of it, end quote. Mazzillo instructed Perry to, quote, take 1 point off, end quote, Potter's rate and to charge, quote, no extra fees, end quote. Potter was referred to Mazzillo and/or the VIP program by former Fannie Mae Chief Executive Jim Johnson. In an email that was issued, that was written in May 21st, 2003, sent by Kay Gerfen of Countrywide, let me read that. It says, coincidentally, Angelo just ran into Mr. Jack Potter, parentheses, Postmaster General, and parentheses. And Mr. Potter will be calling on Friday. Angelo wanted to make sure you were given a heads up to, quote, let Mr. Potter know we/CW will take care of it, end quote. Also, per Angelo, quote, take 1 point off and no extra fees, deal a little complicated, bridge loan, ... end quote. Please let Angelo know as soon as you hear from Mr. Potter. Thank you. In light of this, I need to ask if you knew about this. Did you accept the loan? And do you feel like you were given favor by Countrywide through this encounter?
Well, first, I do have a loan from Countrywide. I believe that the terms of my loan were the result of a good credit history and my financial position and the fact that I was buying and purchasing a home and putting over half of the money down in cash. And you know, the discussions were strictly between myself and Countrywide. Were all about the loan. There was no linkage to any expectations of official acts or, you know, anything to do with a relationship with any elected officials that has been, you know.
My understanding is the Inspector General has started an investigation. Are you willing to cooperate with the investigation as completely as possible by turning over all documents, consent to an interview or deposition with the investigators, and are you willing to make other people or help and assist with other people with knowledge of the terms of the loan available for the Inspector General's office?
Yes.
How much did you save by taking a discounted loan?
Again, I think the terms of my loan was consistent with my credit history.
How were you? What was the nature of you actually coming in contact? In fact, you were referred to Countrywide's VIP program by former Fannie Mae CEO Jim Johnson, correct? How did that come about?
Well, at the time, Jim Johnson was the co-chair of the President's Commission on the United States Postal Service. So Jim Johnson was working with us as chairman of that committee during that period of time.
And did Johnson indicate to you that you should expect preferential treatment, discounts from Countrywide?
No, Johnson indicated to me that because he and I had a discussion, he had overheard me having a discussion with somebody, and he basically came up to me and said, oh, congratulations, you're buying a house. I had told him that at the time of the discussion that I hadn't closed yet, that I had made an offer, and he told me that we had a long discussion about how long I was going to work as Postmaster General, how long I anticipated being in the home. He suggested to me that I consider a 723 loan. He also suggested to me that I consider using Countrywide, which is a group that provided him with a loan.
And you'll cooperate fully then with the Inspector General's investigation?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
5 minutes.
Oh, no, thank you. And thanks, Ambassador, and thank you, General, for being here. And thanks for your dedication to our country and your commitment to public service and the untold number of hours and heartache that you go through, and we appreciate that. I would like to talk about the nation-building aspect of what's happening. But before I get to that, Ambassador, I need to ask you just a brief set of questions about your involvement with the Countrywide loans that were given out, this so-called Friends of Angelo program. Now, my understanding is that you were a private citizen when you participated in that, and personally, I don't see a challenge when you're involved as a private citizen engaged in those types of things. But would you agree with me that there's a difference between doing that as a private citizen and if you were engaged in government service?
You know, I'm going to let you answer that. I suspect you want to respond to that, but I'd like to try to keep this on the subject matter of the hearing.
Yeah, and I'll stick to my 5 minutes.
We don't get many opportunities to have oversight hearings about this region, have the Ambassador and the General here.
This shouldn't take long.
I'm not going to rule it out of order if the Ambassador wants to answer, but otherwise I will.
I'll do whatever you want, Mr. Chairman. Well, I'll be happy to talk
soon
privately
have you respond off
it.
the record on that. We can keep this hearing focused on matters pertaining to this region and the oversight aspect.
Get through it very quickly. Believe me, I want to talk about what's going on in
already.
Afghanistan.
Is what I'm basically saying. So if you want to move on to your next question, we're happy to entertain it.
I'd appreciate if the Ambassador's expressed a willingness to answer it. I'd like to.
Well, I'm not going to comment on other people, and I was a private citizen. 1/6 of all the mortgage loans in the country were from that company. We looked around. It wasn't actually a loan for me. It was for my son, and they found a good rate.
The question I really want to ask is, if you were involved in public service, that would be an issue, right? This really shouldn't be an issue because you're a private citizen.
Mr. Chavez, if you can tie that into somehow it makes any relevance to the hearing we're having, fine. Otherwise, we're just going to rule that line of questioning out of order, ask you to move on to something pertinent to this hearing.
I'd like the Ambassador to answer that question.
I know you would, but now I'm asking you to ask something that's pertinent to this hearing, or we'll just move on to the next question.
I do think it is the relevancy and jurisdiction of this committee to ask a relevant question like that.
Mr. Chairman, it should be in a private conversation.
Chair, you may.
Mr. Chairman, it should be in a private conversation.
Excuse me. We've had a ruling of the chair. Mr. Chavez can either challenge the chair ruling
or move on. I'll move on.
Thank you.
I would also like to ask Mr. Ambassador Holbrooke, if he could, for as far as being a special envoy, I don't know whether you are required to provide financial disclosure in the way that the Secretary, those records for the official for the official record to date.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you.
Mr. Cummings. I just want to clarify one matter. A moment ago, Ms. Capter asked for items to put on the record. One was a statement by a certain general on that, and that was put on the record without objection. You made another request, I understand, that I didn't hear. You somehow wound two together in there, and that was about financial statements or whatever.
Financial disclosure.
That is not going to be allowed in by unanimous consent on that. Any public record that's already submitted obviously will be a public record, and that will be allowed. But we're going to allow the witnesses to respect whatever public obligations they have to record, and that's what we'll have for that.
Many of the investigations that I'm not getting cooperation on, probably at the orders of people above Ed Towns, I'm actually trying to investigate the Bush administration, but their fear is that it will lead to others. And if I can, I'll just give you one example. How many of you got a loan from Countrywide? Thank you. I'm glad to hear that there are people who say, yeah, I did. Well, Countrywide had a program. Were you part of Friends of Angelo? I mean, they had this program. It's not a secret. I mean, Chris Dodd is being investigated by the Senate Ethics Committee specifically for having gotten a number of these at you can calculate it in the tens of thousands of dollars of savings, nearly $100,000 in savings as a result of these better deals than you got. I don't think you can get a rebate from Bank of America now because it's too late, but we are trying just to get the information on who all got it, what the goals were. We sort of know the goals, but how broad the program is, because this type of public corruption, and this is one member of Congress talking about, you know, Countrywide in the past tense. Angelo was not a Republican or a Democrat. You know, he gave this deal to the Postmaster General, who was a Republican appointee. He gave it to Republican staffers. They gave it specifically to anybody that could help them. And we're not getting subpoenas granted, even though during the Bush administration and Republicans being in charge of both houses, it's inevitable that more Republicans probably got the deal than Democrats. I think the problem is they're trying to protect specific Democrats who are still in office who have not been outed.